Here I am at Computex 2025. The focus this year was on AI. And, well, that's kind of the same as the last couple of years, right? But this time was a little bit different. So compared to previous years where I've seen in expos lots and lots of products of AI, so like AI robots, AI dogs, AI mice, AI computers, I saw much less of that here, and I saw a lot more data centers, what Jensen Huang calls AI factories, how they're being deployed and put together. That does make sense because a lot of the hardware manufacturing for the kind of AI robotics is not focused around here. It's more focused around regions like the Greater Bay Area or like Beijing. So for example, companies like Unitree, I saw one of their G1 robots and their robot dogs. The focus here was on the AI software itself controlling these robots, but not as much on the manufacturing of the robots themselves. So bring me the cookie box.
Absolutely. I'll make sure the red box cookie and cream flavored coffee reaches you very soon.
That look of deep shame that you're seeing right now is, well, the result of my absolute ineptitude at golf. But the demo that BenQ has put together is really interesting. With 2 cameras and a sensor, creates a golfing experience for practicing that's not like right in the middle of the hot sun. So this can be something that's useful either for a golf club or a very wealthy individual to set up. In sports, the past couple of years, it's been more and more possible to add live recreations of what a golf swing looks like. And so it makes sense to have it integrated directly into a game. That was the BenQ booth. Let's move on to the next one. So this is one of the digital twin factories where you're able to control an arm directly as it is positioned in the factory. When the arm is moved in the real world, then it switches positions while it's in the virtual world. So this is what allows factories to monitor if there's any mistakes, if there's any abnormalities, then it can be integrated into a greater simulation of the whole factory. So typically this is where I would do a bit about popping up from the back of the TV, but as you can see, even hiding behind it, I'm not protected. Here I am at the HKC booth where we have what I've been told is the fastest display in the world. So it refreshes 750 times every second. At this point, we're well into the diminishing returns of what you're able to see with human vision. It does make a lot of sense for example, esports, where every single split second counts. It does come with some drawbacks though, because at a 1,000 to 1 contrast ratio, it's much worse than the contrast ratio you would have on your smartphone, and it's only a 1080p display. But as we've seen in the past with 240, 300 hertz displays, these are limitations that will get worked out in the future as technology progresses, as these manufacturing techniques scale up and costs come down. And let's move on to the next booth. With all of this talk around AI servers and AI data centers, we're having to have more and more power going through all of these servers, which means more and more cooling. So a lot of servers are switching from cooling with air directly to cooling with water because water is so much more efficient. But when you introduce water, as you know probably very well from your phone, if you mix water and your phone, it's not the best mix. Which is why you need to have some kind of way to disconnect the water systems and perform maintenance. So Staubli, which is this Swiss company, produces fittings for large industrial scale data center deployments. Let's say you have like 20 pumps, one of them fails, you need to have a way to disconnect it quickly. So you do it like this, and you just pull it, and you just pull it out like this, now that it's disconnected and the pump has failed. So you would just replace it like this. Let's move on to the next booth. Here we are at the Castrol booth, where you are seeing a server that's underwater So it's not technically water, it's DC-20. Liquids are much better at transferring heat than air is. Obviously, there's a downside versus having like huge heat sinks. Electronics and liquids don't typically mix. As of like 2 years ago, it was really not possible to do this kind of system without using mineral oil and running the risk of destroying all your very expensive components. You have to have some kind of coating on top of it that allows it to be cooled. Not only is mineral oil corrosive, but it's also flammable, which is where DC-20 comes into the mix. It's much less corrosive to electronics. There's way less maintenance and customizations that's required. All right, this is the Smart Pod by Submer. So the advantage of this is that you can have passive cooling compared to other data centers, which would use AC to cool everything down and then have these intricate systems. So it's actually quite surprising how warm it is. I could touch it, but I am not going to because this is going to 50 degrees as the coolant in Singapore, where it's regularly 35 degrees outside, or Indonesia, Philippines, etc. All these Southeast Asian nations where heat is very high and also water is in short supply. So having a system like this, where you're cooling it with oil and you don't have to rely on actually like air conditioning everything, would allow for a reduction in the amount of water loss from all these water cooling systems. This Smart Pod is able to dissipate around 300 kilowatts of cooling. As AI servers become more and more powerful, more and more power hungry, even denser configurations between servers, it's quite likely that this kind of configuration will become more and more common as the years go by. So you would theoretically be able to have a 1.02 factor for cooling versus 1.2, 1.3. So that's like 20% more power that can be then sent towards the AI servers, towards reducing water consumption and all of that goodness. I think that's all the time we have here for the Castrol booth. Let's move on. All right, we're finally seeing some robots here at the Alien booth at Computex. This is a company based out of Guangzhou that has software for a robot arm, so I'm actually not supposed to touch it. So you can see it pressing the button on the steering wheel. They've set me up with this view of the software itself. Let's say you want to test the play and pause button, so you just select that. With the mouse, it just press pause, and now you no longer have Baby Monster playing. Let's find some more robots. Continuing with Tech Asia's Computex coverage, I'm here with Suzuki Takashi from Xella.
We are developing a tactical sensor, and our sensor have a lot of function, not only pressure detection, but also indicate the temperature, also sleeping recognition, and also like a scale. When we add another weight, 100 grams, like this, plus minus 10 grams.
So we've been talking a lot about how robotics and human robots are going to be a huge part of how, well, the technology of the future is going to come forwards, from AI to manufacturing. Because when you think about skin, like, it seems like a very simple thing, but human skin is so complicated and so like it accomplishes so many functions. So similar to what your sensor does, we're able to detect heat, we're able to detect weight. So if you carry something, like, you're able to feel like, oh, this is heavy, this is light. And you're also able to detect pressure, so that's what allows us to like not crush something like this egg.
Of course, human sensitivity is more higher than our sensor level.
So there's still a lot of work.
But close to human level.
Okay.
Our sensor can detect very small pressure, minimum 0.1 grams. Permanent magnet is floating by the silicon rubber. If we press a sensor, permanent magnet close to the sensing point. So the sensing point calculates distance to the pressure level. We also have planning to make more narrow distance of sensor to add additional more sensors. Our sensor size is like this.
Yeah, this is already quite small.
Yeah, but it's really tough to make more narrow distance.
Yeah, because especially if it's silicon, then if you start moving things around, the magnet from one point is going to interfere with the other one, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so do you have any strategy for this, or is it all confidential?
Yes, it's confidential, I'm sorry.
So thank you so much, Takashi Suzuki.
You're welcome.
I look forward to seeing your sensors and more robots to come, and I'm going to continue my Computex coverage. So I'm trying out a assisted walking setup. So here. Long day of reporting on the Computex show floor. My legs need a break, which is why this assistance tool from NiceCon can help. So this is designed for factory workers or people who are working in construction or outdoors. Lifting something heavy, this kind of motor can help reduce strain. It's super light, so this is made of carbon fiber. These are becoming more and more common on construction sites. Is there like stronger setting, weaker setting?
Oh, that's the most one?
Yeah,
Okay.
max power.
Bigger, more.
Yeah,
Okay.
is this at max?
What?
Okay,
Right?
oh yeah. So it's
Walk and the wrong.
yeah, no, wow, okay. Yeah, no, it's kind of like forcing me to walk fast. So here, let's try it out here. So this is at the maximum setting, so obviously it's not the most reasonable way, but if you're carrying something heavy, it's actually nice to have that support and like pushing you towards like doing things automatically. This is going to change how people work, reduce strain and like injuries for lots of people. So that's the NiceCon booth, and I think let's move on. Woo! I can run super fast. I'm here with Chris from Gatoron, and they're here to showcase something a little bit special. You can see this keyboard right in the middle of the water.
Yeah, it's waterproof so that you can shower with your keyboard.
And so how do they do that?
We have a nano coating on the PCB. In other industries, other people are using this to do the nano coating as well. But in the keyboard industry, we are the first one to do the nano coating to make this waterproof.
This design is super cute. I also love the pink colors, so I'm very partial to that. And it wouldn't be good Expo coverage if I didn't run into Alice from M-Shows. You have some more pink keyboards for me.
This is our first time that we work with the Gatoron for the Hall effect switches.
One of the reasons that I first learned about Gatoron back in the day, I think it was like 2017, was for the half-height switches.
Normal profile switches, they are very stumble and very big.
When you take something like this to the cafe, you're not too weird, versus like taking something like this, which weighs, how much does this weigh?
I think that's a dumbbell.
Yeah, I think like this weighs too many kilos. I love it so much. I will never take it with me to the cafe, whereas I could take this to the cafe.
We based in Guangdong, Huizhou, and we manufacture the switches all on our own.
Actually, I think it was one of the reasons why keyboard became much more affordable back in like late 2010s, because before everything was locked to the Cherry MX switches, everything was super expensive. And with the arrival of Gatoron and other switch manufacturers from mostly Guangdong province, keyboard switches became much more accessible and like much higher quality. You have innovations like the magnetic switches that came in. Yeah, I'm very excited to see where keyboards are going in the future. And I think with Chris, that's all we have for the Gatoron booth. Let's move on.
Ik ben ontzettend blij dat ik hier bij jullie kan zijn. Ik vind het ontzettend leuk, heel erg gezellig. Ik geniet wel erg en ik heb een ontzettend leuke tijd gehad op de beurs. Heel hartelijk bedankt. I'm making it work. I'm making it work.
高兴能和你们在一起，这真的很有趣，非常舒适，我非常享受这场展会。And then what did you say?
Overall, this was a really exciting show for me. I'm looking forward to having a little bit more time with some of the products that I've showcased to be able to give a little bit more in-depth coverage than just Expo coverage. But I think that's all I have the time for this week. It's been incredibly busy. So until next time, I guess you'll just have to take care.